What if I told you there's a real general who fought butt naked, wearing no clothes? He ran into battle with his foes screaming. He was a real man, General Butt Naked, and now a cult wants to recruit him. Before we get to the cult, I need to explain how General Butt Naked came to be and ruin some of the comedy associated with that name. You see, General Butt Naked fought in the Liberian Civil War. He's a real man, Joshua Belai, now a preacher. Liberia is an interesting country with an incredibly interesting and engaging history, and they won't do it justice here. I'm not going to. I'm going to give you a brief overview so we can get to what's happening now. Liberia is part of America's foray into colonialism. What makes this country so interesting is that it was formed specifically as a little America. More specifically, what the American government was thinking of doing was sending freed men who had fought in the Civil War, slaves, former slaves, back to Africa so they could get the equal rights they weren't getting in the Americas. Now, they weren't from Liberia. These people were born in America, had American values, and for all metaphorical counts and purposes, they didn't see themselves as that. In fact, when they went back, they were called Americo-Liberians. But they went back. They took everything American with them. The American values, the American ideals, the American-styled flag and names of cities. And there they were in the new country of Liberia, underneath the big sister America. Now, much like its big sister, Liberia would see itself becoming revolutionaries, turning against America and declaring independence. And they got that. However, since this is a foray into colonialism, that should be foreshadowing for what happened next. The native tribes of Liberia weren't happy with these people who came in, became a ruling class, and didn't treat them well. These people brought in a new religion, new ideas, and generally were trying to change these people from the way that they had lived for generations. This would eventually boil over to the president, William Talbert, when he was killed in a coup. A military junta took over the country, and things were gonna change around here. By that I mean this turmoil would eventually lead to conflicts that killed about 8% of the population of Liberia. And this is where General Butt Naked comes into the picture. Not really in a way you would expect. You see, Joshua was always a religious man, but that religion was different at this time. He was a high priest to the new president and leader of the coup, Samuel Doe. Joshua was interesting because he got his position as a high priest from his native tribe. You see, they would pick a high priest by basically doing a battle royale. According to Joshua, this would be a conflict where men would go and fight each other, and basically whoever won by raw strength and killing the opposition would become a high priest. And this was the religious leader behind Samuel Doe, who was the new president, and he was part of the native ethnic groups in the area. Now, Samuel Doe is an interesting guy because allegedly, according to conspiracy theorists, Samuel Doe had help in his coup from the United States government. And specifically, the CIA apparently helped Samuel Doe commit this coup. That's alleged, please don't take that as fact. As well as people saying that there were white mercenaries who were also stabbing the former president. Now, I should mention that Doe styled himself as a dictator. He visited dictators and felt himself to be a doctor. Now, this also included other things such as subjugating minority groups, rigging elections, unequal distribution of power, wealth, and, general dictator stuff. Meanwhile, Joshua Belai was in the background, a young boy, literally a boy, 11, 12, 13, pretty much in his teens. All of this turmoil would eventually lead to the Liberian Civil War. Again, something I can't cover in any detail here because honestly I could teach a class on it. But a lot of warlords and generals were jockeying for power in Liberia. And yes, Joshua was one of them, but he wasn't Joshua anymore. Joshua had taken up the moniker of Butt Naked, General Butt Naked. Butt Naked was this religious man, this warrior who also fought believing in his God. Now, this isn't the typical Christian God. This is a God who wanted Butt Naked to get sacrifice and use that sacrifice to power his butt-naked brigade in combat because all of his soldiers fought butt-naked. So, butt-naked would go out, find a child, drag them underwater, snap their neck, bring the child's body back, rip out their heart, and then cut up the heart and feed it to his soldiers, who, by the way, were all child soldiers. Now, these soldiers would fight in the nude as well. They would just be wearing sneakers and carrying a machete or an AK-47. They would go into conflict after eating the heart of somebody or just the body of a human or blood, and they would also get really jacked up on drugs. Super jacked up. So you have all these naked soldiers either running in wigs and women's clothing or just straight up in the nude, and you would be terrified. They were hooting and hollering and screaming, and they would sweep through a village like a plague, killing everyone. They would take families, cut off their heads, and use those heads for soccer practice. It was not good. And now all of a sudden, the Butt Naked Brigade is a lot less funny of a name given the fact that you know some of what they did. But the Butt Naked Brigade fought under the Liberian Peace Council, which is also probably a poor name for a group of people who would cut off the heads of civilians and, Now, Belai, in his older years, now thinks that he killed roughly around 20,000 people in his time as Butt Naked. But I wouldn't be talking about Butt Naked if he was still the same man he was back in the 90s. Now, Butt Naked is actually still perfectly alive, in great health, and actually hasn't faced any war crimes charges. He's a completely changed man, a preacher of Christ, and he even runs an NGO that helps child soldiers learn skills and help them get clean from drugs. You see, for a short time, Joshua blamed Satan for these things, but now he takes full responsibility for these actions, and as a result of this, for years has been calling for his persecution as a criminal. Not only does he do that, he calls for the jailing of other Liberian war criminals. The man, for many people, is considered a saint now, a changed man who is changing the lives of many people who had their lives upended by war. As a result of all this, in the strange position Butt Naked is trying to put himself in, he's become a bit of a celebrity. A celebrity who doesn't want to be a celebrity. He was referenced in the Book of Mormon. There's the aforementioned post on Vice, and he has a larger Wikipedia page than some people who have invented incredibly useful products that we use every day. To say that he is one of the 21st century's most favorite and famous reformed war criminals would be an understatement. Usually, those are just US politicians, and nobody likes them. But everybody likes General Butt Naked. But how did Butt Naked even become a part of my content? You see, I was just perusing the internet looking for something to make a video on, when all of a sudden, out of the blue, I find out about a group who wants to recruit Butt Naked to their cause. And what made this interesting is who the group was. Now, the term cult exists on a spectrum. We've covered this before, but some cults do one thing, others do another, but none are comparable to each other. They all are awful in their own special way. The only thing that you can generally say all of them do is that they look to make people's lives worse. There's a difference between Jim Jones and Jehovah's Witness, but I wouldn't say that either one or the other is good, okay? Okay, so who's looking to recruit General Butt Naked? Who wants this guy in their religion? It's a group called Israel United in Christ. Which is a group that's like a subsect of a much larger religious movement that's gained a lot of popularity over the last 200 years or so. This being the Hebrew Israelite movement, which is interesting, and I'm not going to cover the entire history in this video because this is an in-between, but we can generally date this back to around a time of, yes, again, the slave trade in the Americas. This movement is primarily made up of people of color. I know I have family that agree and are a part of things like this, but generally speaking, this is Latinos, African Americans, or just, melanin-inclined individuals who are a part of this movement. And most of it is generally fine, but there are some more extremist elements, of which this is one of. Generally, from my research, I can tell that the Hebrew Israelite movement is part of the reason for the proliferation of the argument of Jesus or this, that, or the other religious figure being black. I mean, really just take your pick. If you ever hear one of those arguments, and that's not the conversation for this video, but that argument originates from this movement in religion. The reason the IUIC is in this video is because they actually preach religious extremist views. And I'll go over this, but again, you know, I feel like this one's going to be a contentious one, but I'm sticking to my guns here because I really do see a lot of this, and I think it's a problem. Because hate is hate is hate is hate. Doesn't matter what religion, race, sex, or creed you are. If you are going to hate someone based on something that is, you know, completely out of their control, you're a terrible person. So there's that. The IUIC is actually pretty familiar to some Native American cult religions that were formed during, you know, the times when Native Americans were being relocated out west. Generally, these religions were cult religions that would say, oh, you know, if we dance to exhaustion, Jesus is going to come in a vision. These people at that time, the Native Americans, also believed that they were God's chosen people, similar to the IUIC, right? I mean, everybody believes they're God's chosen people, but the point is that these people believed that the white people would die in Armageddon, the Native Americans, and the IUIC holds a similar belief. So this is, of course, they're anti-Semitic, but they believe that the Jewish people are fake Jewish people, that they're imposters. And that similar belief to those Native American cult religions is that white people are demons who will be enslaved by the black man in the New World, which, you know, I'm going to play my race card here today. I'm Latino, so the group also has a military-style class structure, which generally is a pretty bad warning sign. If you have hierarchical structures that are based off of military institutions. And the leader has a background in law enforcement from which they got those military-style ranking systems. Obviously, breaking the rules in this group is going to get you kicked from it, right? But whether or not you're in this group or not, their ideals have stretched far and wide in the cultural zeitgeist. There have been plenty of rappers and people who have referenced this group or similar in the past. The problem is not a lot of the ideals. The problem is the racism and the anti-Semitism, okay? Incredibly enough, the IUIC has a great social media presence. This is how they've gotten so much power, and Kendrick Lamar was one of the big names recently who referenced them. Now, the group's leader said for Kendrick not to say anything publicly about supporting them or anything like that, because he didn't want Kendrick to get any bad press, and I don't think Kendrick knows their beliefs, so that's fine. The leader of this group is named Bishop Nathaniel Israel. While going into the editing phase, I came across this wonderfully interesting article that chronicled a experience of a white journalist going to visit the group of which Bishop Nathaniel runs. So the late Miami-based Black Israelite leader, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, or God Son of God, was convicted in 1990 on federal racketeering charges related to his ordering the murder of some 14 people. A member of the organization, ASAP, pulls a worn-out copy of the good book, and he said, quote, "Avoid profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called." And he shut that book, and then after that, he says, "We're talking about a group of people who make a pill and then tell you there's 15 other things that could come about from that pill that could kill you." So the anti-science rhetoric is running through this group as well. Now, Israel's argument about why they're not a hate group is that they haven't lynched or committed any hate crimes yet. It's true, they haven't committed any hate crimes, but these are the exact kind of ideals that push people to do hateful things in the name of something greater. This isn't just specific to them. It happens with pretty much any extremist religious group, but we're talking about them. Needless to say, I don't think saying we haven't committed a hate crime yet is a good argument against why you should or should not be labeled as a hate group. This I found very interesting. They go on to say why Beyonce is a whore. Black women are taught to look up to their false idols as part of a plot to destroy the true Israelite family. You might have seen this from other black supremacists that have gotten popular on social media. They have similar beliefs to this about, you know, female idols like Beyonce are actually teaching women to be whores. That's what they're saying, right? That's why Israel United in Christ has a special ministry geared towards women that teaches them homemaking tips and provides cooking and recipes. Men and women each have roles to play in life that are dictated by God. A woman's place is in the kitchen or in the bedroom making babies. And then, the article goes on to say, some may look at the poverty that the people experience in the Bronx and Newburgh and think it's time to break down racial barriers. Israel United, however, wants to keep the de facto segregation in place, which segregation bad. I don't really need to make an argument against that, right? Only they want black people on the top. As they closed the lesson, I was instructed that we're living in the last days. So not only do we have the usual conspiracy theories related to an overarching world government controlling a group of people, but then we also have the apocalyptic scenario cult, and these are really good for getting people into the cult and keeping them there. So since the group makes a lot of money, they're able to actually do missions to places, and as a result of that, they took a mission to Liberia. And this mission was done with the intent not only to convert people to their cause and belief, but also to recruit General Butt Naked, because he was kind of a celebrity preacher in Liberia. So this group flew out to Liberia and wanted Belai to teach their version of their gospel, to teach them the truth in Africa and get a foothold into the continent and start spreading their beliefs across it. I mean, if Belai is in charge of that there and he's able to spread it, I mean, they've got a great foothold and a great way to spread their beliefs even further. This would also be an excellent way for them to convert more local and isolated tribes to their religions that have been around for generations but now can just be upended by this one instead. And I have looked at other groups to do videos on, and I have literally seen so many anti-Semitic things. It is crazy how popular of a belief that is, and it is so sad. But there's that. I feel like I have to make an argument for myself here, mainly because I know people who engage in this stuff personally. There'll be peace on earth when Black Jesus returns and the true Israelites take all the white people captive under Christ's command. And then, I love this. Don't worry, we're not going to sodomize you, Nathaniel assured me with that grin of his. I am annoyed about these ideals existing because, these are the kind of things that people can use to justify a hate crime. I think faith empowering people is important, but faith shouldn't be a tool that you use to empower people by putting others down. That's wrong, in my opinion. I don't think it's okay. Joshua Belai has been calling for his, incarceration, for him to receive some kind of justice for what happened, because the untold amount of suffering he has caused will never outweigh the amount of good he's done. And he's done a lot of good, and I don't think he's a bad man, not anymore, because people change. But should he or should he not receive some kind of justice for what he happened? I don't know. But should Joshua's goodwill as a person be taken advantage of by a group who just wants to spread their ideals? And with that said, this short cult video has finally come to a close. And with that said, I am going to be looking over my shoulder for the next couple weeks, because I'll have this in a second channel video, but one thing that's happened as I've started covering this stuff is that I've just gotten really paranoid, because some of these people have a lot of power. The IUIC doesn't seem like a group with a lot of power, but I've gotten my fair share of interesting messages since I've started doing this. I've also gotten some emails from organizations and businesses based in China, which has also been strange. They've been asking for personal information and details and asking me to cooperate and do business stuff. And it's been making me super paranoid. I don't think anything's going on, but I just wanted to mention that that's something that's happened to me now. And it's, there's comments I get that are oh, it'd be funny if FPS Diesel committed unalive by accident, it's it just happened. I don't think that's going to happen yet. I don't think the IUIC is the group to do that. I'm just putting it out there. If I suddenly disappear, I didn't do it to myself and somebody took me out. Okay. So I feel like a crazy person saying that. Anyway, take care, guys. Support the channel if you can, and be nice to people. Just regardless of who they are or anything, just say, I hope you have a nice day today. Just do that. Please just do it for me, because this shit makes me sad. Okay?